Hey, it's Chris Allingham with the Rich Weber Bullet. Today I'm going to show you how I trim pork butt. Now, I'm going to do this sort of live to tape. You're going to just see it all the way through, however long this takes. If I make mistakes, you're going to see the mistakes as well. I'm not a butcher. I'm not a competition professional. I never went to culinary school. So what you're going to see here is how I trim pork butts for backyard barbecue. I think it's probably adequate for your purposes as well. But if you are a professional, you're a chef, if you're a competition barbecue person, don't watch this video thinking that you're going to learn much, because I'm not going to be trimming it in those ways. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. I am going to pick one of these pork butts to demonstrate for you how I trim it. I'll set the other one aside. I'm going to dry it off with paper towels. I'm going to use my trusty knives here to remove a lot of the fat on the exterior of the pork butt. You know, philosophically, I don't like to leave a lot of fat on the exterior of a pork butt because I'm not going to eat it. I know you've probably seen videos on TV where pitmasters season up a pork butt, they put it in the pit, they cook it, they take it out, they put it on a cutting board like this, and they get out a couple of big cleavers and they just bash the heck out of it, mix it all together, a little bit more rub, maybe some vinegar or some thin barbecue sauce, mix it together, and they serve it. And if you were a restaurateur, you do that too, because you want to be able to serve everything that's in this package and make money on it, fat included. I'm not under that constraint. I'm not doing this for profit, and I don't particularly like a lot of the fat to be in this. And if you disagree, that's fine. You don't have to do any trimming at all. But I'm going to show you how I trim. My thinking about it is that by taking off a lot of the exterior fat, particularly the fat cap side, that we can get rubbed directly on that meat and then get a nice dark bark on there that's seasoned with the rub. And I enjoy getting those nice dark exterior pieces mixed in with my pulled pork and not the big blobs of fat that may be left over. So anyway, that's how I'm going to do it today. Okay? So let me start by opening this bad boy up. This is 2 pork shoulders, boneless pork shoulders from Costco. This is how Costco has sold them for many years now. If you prefer bone-in, you can do that. You know, boneless works just fine, I find. I think the only thing is that it's good to tie this before you season it. It kind of helps hold together. I'll show you when we get it out of here what it means to be boneless and what that does to the meat. But either way, works fine. The only advantage of the bone, there's no advantage I don't think in terms of flavor or you know, the meat cooks differently, but it is sort of fun to have the bone. When it's done, you can pull it out of the end. If you properly cooked it, it kind of pops right out, and it's kind of fun to see that clean bone come out of there. But other than that, and the fact that it's less per pound than boneless, but of course then you're paying for the bone that you're not going to eat. So anyway, this is what you can get at Costco. Lots and lots of people cook this meat. It's good quality. It's natural pork butt. It's not injected with anything. So you're going to treat this like a blank palette, a blank canvas, and you're going to season this your way, inject it maybe your way, and cook it your way, and what you're going to taste is just the pure natural pork that's here. So let's go ahead and open it up. Oftentimes what you find is that they're not equal size, which is kind of a bummer, but this in particular does look fairly equal. I made some effort at the store to try to look carefully at the package and find one where I had 2 roughly equal sized pieces. In fact, the weight on this is it's just about 15, just short of 16 pounds, so these are roughly, you know, 8 pounds a piece. And let's see what we have in here. One. I'm trying to keep all the, if I can keep extra juices off the board, I'm going to try to do that here so that doesn't look too messy to you. Here's number 2. This set this aside. So, two pretty good looking pork butts here. Trying to decide which one I'm going to trim for you. What I noticed first of all is that, and this is very common, a lot of these pork butts, probably all of them I guess, have what looks like a layer of fat on top. In fact, I'll keep it this way. These are kind of opposed directions. This is sort of the, yeah, these are going opposite directions here, but you can see this is kind of a fat layer here, and you would think, well, I just trim this off, and I see there's meat here, and I see there's meat here, so I'll just take it down to that meat and I'm done. But in fact, this is, I guess they call it a, I've heard it called a false cap. It's basically, you can see on the side, it's a thin layer of fat on top of a very thin layer of meat. It's right here. And you could leave this on, and you could just, as I said before, you want to just season this and put it in the pit, that's fine. But the meat that I'm going to be eating really is below this. And if I put rub on here and I cook this, I'm going to have a nice crusty thin layer here that's just going to kind of come off, and I didn't get any seasoning to the meat that was down below here. So what I'm going to do today, I think, is remove this false cap and trim out some of the extra fat that's here beneath it, and then I will tie it. I think I'm going to work on this roast here for you, so I'm going to move this other one to the side. And for this guy, I'm going to just clean up my board a little bit, move it to the center here, and maybe actually while I'm at it, just dry it off a little bit. So as soon as I flip that, you notice how that just splayed open. So this is the reality of the boneless pork butt. When you have the bone in here, which is sort of a little bit shaped like your hand, this meat has something to stay connected to. There's connective tissue and collagen, all those things that kind of hold the bone in. But when they come in with the knife and they cut the bone out, you're left with this thing. And of course, you're not going to set that on the grill like that and cook it. So I've seen plenty of people just basically, try to keep it together like that when they put it in the pit. That's okay. As it cooks, it's going to shrink, it's going to move, it's going to migrate. Some weird things can happen. So I like to tie it with kitchen twine, and I'll show you a little bit later how I do that. For now, I'm going to start with the trimming. What kind of tools do I have here? I've got a 6-inch boning knife, very sharp, curved blade. I got a big Mac Daddy Cimeter? I think Scimatar is the sword. Maybe Cimeter is the way the knife is pronounced. Kind of a much bigger version. It's really a butcher knife, basically. I kind of like it just because of how it looks. It looks sort of badass. But it is nice when you're cutting large pieces of meat because it's got a very long blade. If I wanted to cut something, across the width of this, I could do it with this knife in one stroke. I've also got a pair of kitchen shears here in case there's any weird little tidbits in here that I'm going to take off. So I'm going to start with the boning knife. And I'm going to put on my glasses because I won't see a darn thing if I don't. And just take a quick look here. And I see, once again, I see the fat, the false cap, the fat cap on top of this thin layer of meat. I'm just going to go right in here, see if I can just pick it up right here in this corner. In fact, I can get my finger in there, you can see. And just see if I can just sort of get in here and get under this thing. And I'm trying to make, surgical cuts. I'm not trying to cut deeply here. I don't want to go down into the stuff that I'm going to keep and cook. I just want to take off the top part here. So I'm getting a little bit of the meat below, which I don't want to do. Just like you, this is something I don't do every day. So you're not going to see perfection here. You're going to see sort of the reality of me and how I do this. Which I hope gives you confidence that you can do it yourself. Because if a joker like I can do it, you ought to be able to do it too. I'm going to grab a paper towel just to be able to get a little better hold on this thing. It's a little bit slippery. And I'm just trying to follow that fat seam back and make sure that I'm still getting that thin piece of meat. I'm cutting below, below the fat, below that thin false cap of meat, and down into the section below it. I missed it right there, but I'll pick it up again. And I sort of lost it a little bit again, but I'll pick it up right here. This is going to come off just separately. There's that. So there's the first part of it. And I missed this piece right here, so I'm going to, once again, I'm going to come back in here to this area of fat and get underneath that thin piece of meat and just cut right across here. Thin, shallow cuts right to the end. Okay, so basically I took that thing that was laying here across the top. All this was on here. I just took that off, and if you look at it, it's just little bits of meat, and there's a thin little wispy thing in between, and that's nothing that I really want to eat. And I've now exposed a whole bunch of muscle here that I'm going to be able to season. I am going to, just take my time and sort of take off some of this surface fat that's here. I'm not going to, pork butt consists of, someone says, 7 muscles, 8 muscles, I don't know, 9 muscles that all converge at the shoulder of the hog. And so every one of these fat seams that you see in here, and every time you see the meat direction changing, that's a muscle coming together with another muscle held together with fat and connective tissue. I'm not trying to separate this into multiple pieces. I'm trying to keep it together as a cohesive unit, but I do want to take off large areas of fat that remain here. But I'm not going to dig down, into the kind of the crack between each of these muscles and try to get it out of there. So I'm just going to take off what makes sense to me, what seems obvious. This is not going to look like, it's not going to look like a nice clean steak when I'm done. It's not going to look like even a brisket flat. If you've ever cooked a brisket flat and you know how there's some fat and silver skin on it, you get a nice clean surface if you spend a lot of time cleaning it off. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look more like this. There's going to be just areas of fat, but areas of fat between the muscles, but I am going to take off the larger parts that I see here. Another bit right there. A little knob of fat right there. Just take that off for some reason. No particular reason I went for that, but I'm going to. And here's a little weird edge of fat. I'm just going to snip that off with a knife. So a little bit right here. I mean, you can spend as much or as little time doing this stuff as you want to do. At the end here, there's sort of some fat around this end, so I'm going to just shave this off here. I don't want to eat it, I don't want to cook it, I don't want to waste rub on it. Try not to cut myself, be very careful. I'm sure you've heard it a million times before, a sharp knife is the best knife, safest knife to use. You've got to be confident, in working with knives. Don't get your fingers in front of the blade if you can help it. But if you don't have a sharp knife in your toolkit, you're going to run the risk of hurting yourself because you'll be trying to force the knife through, and then like that, and you'll jab yourself or cut yourself. And I have cut myself. It's not fun. You don't want to do it. Take your time. A little bit more fat over here, I think I will take off. This is just, something you're doing by eyeball. There's not a prescriptive way to do it. Every pork butt's going to be different, so what you see here is not going to be exactly what you see when you take your pork butt out of the package, but it'll be similar enough, and you'll see large areas of fat that seem like they'll be obvious for you to take off. So on this side of the meat, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about what I see here. I haven't looked at the other side yet. I do know that on the end, there's a little bit of fat left here. This is, by the way, this area here is what, if you're familiar with competition barbecue or you have watched any of the millions of barbecue cooking shows on television, this is the money muscle. You can identify it by this sort of, there's a grain that runs this way, and then there's these, perpendicular to it, there's these white sort of striations of fat that run through here. In competition, you do a whole treatment just around this muscle to expose it, to be able to cook it, and then maybe even separate it off at some point. Slice it into little medallions and serve it to judges, but of course we're not going to do that in the backyard. What I noticed though is that when I took the fat cap off, a little bit of fat right here on the end, below that money muscle, I'm just going to come in here and try to take that off. I don't think holding it up like this is the recommended way to do it, but I'm going to do it so you can sort of see what I'm doing. Don't try this at home. You should just lay it down on the cutting board. Okay, so I just sort of cleaned that off. I didn't go in and try to dig it out of here because then I'm going to separate these muscles. I don't want to do that. Now on this other side, there's kind of a blob of fat right here. I'm going to just go in here and excise that. Again, not digging down, just sort of a little bit down, but not too much down. I'm going to go down in here and just sort of try to take some of that excess out. And that's probably good enough. And a little bit of fat here. The other end, there's a bunch of loose muscle here. This is where the bone came out of here, and there's a bunch of weird stuff here. I mean, this is just, I mean honestly, I understand why restaurants want to sell this to you. Everything they cut off and throw away that they can't use is profit right down the drain. But in the backyard, I'm not going to eat that. I'm not going to really not want to eat this. I mean, this is just like, I don't know. It's like this reminds me of turkey neck actually. And maybe it's made of the same stuff. I don't know. But I'm going to take it out of here. Enough talking. I'm going to just take it out of here. And there's a bunch of the same down in here. And I'm going to just sort of clean this up a little bit. Try to get down to some actual meat that I want to eat. Okay. And here as well. Got a big blob of it here. Maybe you can see this here. Again, if I am too aggressive with this whole thing will really start to fall apart. I kind of feel like, in fact, it's starting to come apart a little bit right here, even more so than it normally would the way they had just taken the bone out. But see, I see a whole bunch of like kind of gnarly looking silver skin down here, which I'm going to take off. If you leave this in and you don't want to eat it, I mean, when it comes time to pull the pork, you can try to identify these areas and take them out during the process where you separate the muscles and chop up the meat, and that's fine. There's another way to do it. I will probably do more of that as well after this is cooked. But the philosophy here is sort of why cook this? Why waste fuel on this? Why waste rub on this stuff when you're just going to take it off and toss it out anyway? And I know there's a lot of talk about, the fat bastes the pork. I've heard chefs who, they should know better. Oh, the pork permeates the meat, it flows through. No, it doesn't flow through the meat. It runs off the surface of the meat and into the bottom of your smoker or into the water pan on your Smoky Mountain Cooker. And it maybe keeps the exterior a little moist, but it doesn't. This is not a sponge we're working with here. It's not going to absorb the fat. So my philosophy is take off what I'm not going to eat. And also take off any just sort of weird bits. Like now, I'm not sure you can see this, but right here, See, guys who are more knowledgeable would know what muscle this is. I have no clue, but right here I actually see like I guess it's a vein coming in between these muscles, and I'm just going to take it out. It's kind of gross, but you know what? It's a pig. And pigs have veins. It's a natural product. You got to get over it. And I'm just taking it right out of there. If you see another weird little straggling things, like sometimes, I don't see one on this pork butt, but sometimes you'll see kind of a yellowish, round, maybe like quarter or nickel sized area. It looks like it's maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like a cyst or something in the meat. I mean, you know, you probably have some cysts in your body somewhere you don't know about. I guess pigs do too. If you see things like that, just, you know, take your scissors and just cut them out. Take your knife, cut them out. If you see any weird sort of things hanging on, like a vein, even here, like at this edge, here's just a weird little. I mean, this muscle I'm going to keep, but here's a little bit at the end that's just going to burn if it hangs out, and we'll get rid of that. And again, deep in here, there's some more of this stuff I was taking out earlier, but I just sort of. See, now I'm kind of questioning myself why I'm taking this out of here. And you're hearing the doubt, but I'm doing it not because I know it's the right thing to do, but just because I don't like it. So I'm going to take it off. Okay, now I think I'm going to stop. Because now look how it's starting to come apart here, right? What we'll do though is we'll tie it together. So we will get it back into the semblance of a pork butt, which is sort of like this, and we will tie it together with twine, and that'll do a couple of things. It'll keep it from just going everywhere on the grill. It'll keep it a nice compact shape so it cooks more evenly. It'll also make it easier for me to handle getting it in and out of the cooker. It won't be splayed out everywhere. So let me just regroup for a moment, get my kitchen twine, and I'll show you how I tie this up. Okay, I'm back. Now, new and improved, now with kitchen twine. So I'm running low, but I don't think I'm going to run out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this. See, the grain is generally running this direction, and it's kind of falling apart this direction. So I'm going to basically try to keep it together like this, and I'm going to tie it this way several times, maybe twice or three, depending upon how many I can get in here. And I'll probably tie it once or twice across this direction as well. And it'll be kind of like sometimes it looks kind of like a tic-tac-toe setup, where I've tied it on both the X and the Y axis for you mathematicians out there. So let's start by getting a nice long piece here. You know, I don't like to waste this stuff, and yet if you cut them too short, then you're in trouble. So it doesn't cost much. You're better off to probably make it too long and make it short. So cut it off short, I mean. So look, here's this piece. How do you tie this? And I did an entire video on how to tie a roast, and I will throw up here a little suggested link for how to tie a roast. And it's really showing you how to tie a standing rib roast, but it works the same way for a pork butt in terms of the knot that you're going to tie. The knot that you're going to tie, I think they call it a surgical knot. It's basically sort of like how you tie your shoe, but you run the string under yourself one more time. So basically, maybe I'll put a picture up here that shows kind of what that knot looks like up close, or at least how when you cross these things and you pull them, what it looks like. But let me show you here. You take the two ends, you cross them over, just like you're going to start to tie your shoes. You take this end underneath, you bring it back up. Now this is normally, you know, when you tie your shoes, you pull this down and then make your loop and your, whatever you call the top part of your lace. But we're not going to stop here. We're going to take it down to here one more time. So you've now got two passes under the loop. So let's try it one more time. My terminology probably is not correct here. Lace people and knot people are screaming out there in the world. So let me shut up and just do it again. Cross them over. Take one end, bring it under once, bring it under a second time. All that does is it gives just more friction between the two pieces of string, so that it kind of holds together on its own while you then bring it back up and cross it over, back in, and then down to finish your knot, right? So that extra little loop under and pulling tight gives you just enough staying power so that you can then, on your own, without having to put your finger down, get that other loop and finish your knot. I have a feeling this is probably going to be the most confusing part of the whole video because I don't know what my knot terminology is. But let me just show you once again. So, crossed, under once, under twice, pull tight, tight, kind of pull up to hold it, and then you just cross over, back through the loop, back through the hole, and down, boom. And see how nice and tight that is? I mean, it's a good tight fit. I didn't have to call my wife over to say, hey honey, put your finger on there. It's a good little trick. Now as I'm doing this, I'm realizing this is not going to look like tic-tac-toe because I've got 3 strings across here. So it's going to look more like Hollywood squares. You remember Hollywood squares? If you're over, I don't know, how old you have to be? Maybe you remember Hollywood squares. 3 by 3. So anyway, one more time. Crossed, under once, under twice, pull down, tight, tighter, hold it up, back through, down. Cut off the excess. Could I stop right there? Yeah, I mean actually I could. That looks pretty good. It's held together pretty well on this end. You see there's a little bit of sloppiness there. At the other end though, it's a little bit, you know, there's a few hangers on here, hangers out, hanger outers here. It's okay, but I'm gonna go ahead and I think just, is this gilding the lily? I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and tie it. I think I'll tie it twice more, just to show off. Also just to spend more quality time with you. Also to, I don't know, use up more twine. 1, 2, down, tight, pull up, cross over, through, down. This portion of the video brought to you by the Kitchen Twine Association of America. Using lots of twine here. Let's see if I can sort of figure out how to tuck these things in so they're not flopping around. I'm not sure. Maybe I can run my twine over that edge there that I've tucked in. One, 2, down. This is hanging on. Pull up. Go through the loop. Down. Okay. I'll push my luck far enough. What I got is a neat little package. I don't think, no matter what I do to it, no matter how I move it around the cooker, it's not really going to go anywhere. There's a little bit of looseness here, but that just is what it is. Unless you were to actually net this, I don't have equipment to net pork and turkey. A lot of butchers do, but barring the netting process, which encases the entire thing in an elastic, material, this is not a bad way to do it. I'm pretty happy with that. 3 by 2. It's a nice compact shape. And now, what I'll do is I will trim up the other pork butt that I set aside, And with both of these trimmed and tied, I'll then go ahead and apply my rub and either put them straight in the Smoky Mountain Cooker, or for these actually I'm going to put them in Ziploc bags overnight, let them sort of marinate, so to speak, in the rub. Let the salt in the rub have a chance to get into the pork and kind of flavor it. And then I will cook these, I will smoke these in the Smoky Mountain Cooker tomorrow. So that's it for now. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope I was bearable, at least to watch however many minutes of this it is. I want to thank you for watching. I will post some links at the end of this video, maybe for some of these relevant products that I use here if you want to know where I get them from. And thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.